crafting the appropriate sentence. That responsibility becomes even more difficult where, as here, the conduct of the defendant has caused such a senseless, tragic result. The loss of an innocent man, Michael Ricci Sr., and the devastating impact on his family and loss to the community. As with any sentencing decision, I've carefully assessed the information before me in light of the sentencing goals, those being punishment, deterrence, protection of the public, and rehabilitation. In making this assessment, I've considered the severity of the offense, the recommendations by the Commonwealth and by Ms. Ricci's attorneys, the victim impact statements of the 3 Ricci children, Sophia, Angel, and Michael Jr., the impact statements, both read and presented by the deceased's mother and his siblings. I've reviewed and considered the mitigation report prepared by Wendy Carlson. I have considered the defendant's criminal history, which entirely relates to her criminal conduct at Janine Bouchard's home in March 2020. Approximately 1 month prior to killing Michael Sr., the defendant took a continued without a finding to charges of disturbing the peace and trespassing. She was serving her 6-month probationary sentence at the time she stabbed Michael Sr. to death. I have also considered the governing laws and the sentencing guidelines. In Massachusetts, a person convicted of second-degree murder is sentenced to life in state prison, but is eligible for parole after 15 to 25 years. In addition, as to her conviction for assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, the defendant faces a sentence of no more than 10 years in state prison or 2.5 in the House of Correction. The presumptive range of sentencing under the Massachusetts sentencing guidelines for the assault and battery with a dangerous weapon charge here, indictment 02, is 40 to 60 months. It is the responsibility of this court to consult my conscience and to exercise sound judicial discretion in order to punish the defendant justly. Judicial discretion does not commit the court to assign a value to a victim's life, because the value of every human life is incalculable. Judicial discretion does not permit the court to act impulsively or to satisfy any personal or public desire for vengeance. I have considered the life of a beautiful, humble man, a loving father, a veteran of the United States Army, the cook of the house, beloved by his family, a compassionate and kind man who, as a Boston firefighter, selflessly and courageously dedicated his professional life to helping those in the direst of circumstances. That life was taken by his own wife, Christine Ricci. The written and oral impact statements made by Michael Ricci Sr.'s family portray the enormous loss, the sense of grief and anger that has resulted from his tragic death at the hands of his own wife. I am sure that nothing I will say and no sentence I can impose will lessen the grief or the loss that Michael Ricci Sr.'s family feels today and will continue to endure in the future. Michael Ricci Sr.'s siblings and his mother understandably asked this court to punish the defendant to the fullest extent allowed by the law. While respectful of their feelings, I am also mindful that this court should not and will not impose a sentence based on emotion. I recognize also that there are innocent family members of Christine and Michael Ricci, notably, but not exclusively, their 3 children, Angel, Michael Jr., and Sophia, whose lives have been entirely torn apart by their mother's senseless acts of violence on January 28, 2021. I want to say to the Ricci children, release any guilt that you carry with you as you move forward. You are not responsible for what your mother did. In determining how to exercise my discretion, as I said, I'm guided by those goals in sentencing: punishment, deterrence, protection of the public, and rehabilitation. The law mandates that I sentence the defendant to a term not more than is necessary to effectuate the goals of sentencing. I've considered the nature and circumstances of the offense, the conduct and character of the defendant, that the defendant was serving a probationary sentence at the time she killed her husband, as well as the nature and degree of physical harm caused to Michael Ricci Sr. as so-called all-aggravating circumstances. With respect to the character of the defendant, I note that the uncharged conduct, some of which was evidence admitted at trial, and other uncharged conduct that was not admitted as trial because the court determined that its probative value was outweighed by its prejudicial effect. I specifically am not punishing Ms. Ricci for that uncharged conduct. Rather, I consider reports of her prior assaults on Michael Ricci Sr. are sufficiently reliable and bear on the defendant's character and her amenability to rehabilitation. While I credit that Ms. Ricci suffered trauma in her own early life, there is simply no justification for the cycle of escalating abuse and violence she perpetuated against her husband both inside and outside of the Ricci home. Thus, the court has a genuine need to craft a sentence that's designed to protect the public, particularly here, where there is no expression of remorse. Because it was mentioned in the defendant's oral argument on sentencing, I specifically state I am not punishing the defendant for her decision to go to trial. That decision is her constitutional right, and it would be highly inappropriate under the law for me to punish her more harshly for that decision. A significant period of incarceration in state prison will help in the rehabilitation of Ms. Ricci and deter her from any future misconduct by forcing her to consider what she did and to appreciate the gravity of her senseless acts. The sentence is also designed to foster the societal need for meaningful punishment for an individual who intentionally killed her husband. Punishment is the mechanism we use to enforce our societal standards, chief among them the protection of human life and personal safety. Finally, Ms. Ricci's period of incarceration will, for many years, protect the public from her unlawful behavior. Ms. Ricci, you may stand. Ms. Ricci, within your own soul, you will live with the guilt and burden of Michael Ricci Sr.'s death for the rest of your life. I sentence you on count 002, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, to no less than 6 years, no more than 6 years in 1 day. Upon completion of that sentence, I sentence you on indictment 001 to a sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole in 20 years. Madam Clerk, may I impose the sentence?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Ricci, on docket number 2183CR00153, on offense number 002, the court sentences you to be incarcerated at the Massachusetts Correctional Institution at Sousa Baranowski for the term of not less than 6 years, but not more than 6 years in 1 day. On offense number 002, the court sentences you to be incarcerated at the Massachusetts Correctional Institution at Sousa Baranowski for the term of life with the possibility of parole after 20 years. This sentence is to run from and after the sentence imposed on offense number 002. Ms. Ricci, you will be credited with time spent while incarcerated while awaiting disposition in this matter. That number will be 1,301 days. I must advise you of your right to appeal under Superior Court Rule 65. If you wish to do so, you must do so in writing within 30 days. And I must also advise you of your right to appeal your sentence under Superior Court Rule 64. If you choose to do so, you must do so in writing within 10 days. The court assesses the following fees. There's a $110 DNA fee, a $150 counsel fee that was previously assessed, and a $90 victim witness fee. You stand committed.
I would ask that those fees be remitted under the circumstances.
I will remit them all except for the victim witness fee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Court, all rise.